I'm 90 years old, and I finally understand what truly mattered. It took me a lifetime to say those words honestly, not in a clever way, not in a comforting way, just plainly. Most of my life, I thought I understood what mattered. I had lists, goals, priorities that made sense on paper. Now I sit in a small room with a window that faces a parking lot, and I know how little those lists meant. I'm not sharing this because I want sympathy. I'm not looking for forgiveness. Most of the people I would want forgiveness from are already gone. I'm sharing it because I don't have much time left, and because maybe someone younger than me will hear this and recognize something familiar before it's too late. I wake up early now, not because I need to, but because sleep doesn't hold me the way it used to. My body wakes up stiff, my hands shake more than they used to. Some mornings I forget what day it is, but I remember my life, not in a neat timeline, not as a highlight reel, in pieces. Little moments float up without warning. A kitchen table, a voice calling my name from another room, a door closing softly. Those are the things that come back, not my promotions, not my achievements, not the things I once thought defined me. I spent most of my life believing I had more time to call, more time to visit, more time to fix things, more time to say what I meant. That belief shaped almost every bad decision I made. When I was young, I didn't feel reckless. I felt responsible. I grew up in a family where working hard was treated like a moral duty. My father left early every morning and came home tired. He didn't talk much about feelings. He talked about bills, about keeping a roof over our heads, about not falling behind. So when I became an adult, I followed that model. I got a steady job. Nothing glamorous, but dependable. I met a woman in my 20s. She laughed easily. She noticed small things. We got married young. I remember thinking very clearly that love was something you proved by providing. If I worked hard, if I stayed employed, if I paid for the house, if I showed up when it counted, that meant I loved her. I didn't think much about presence. I didn't think much about emotional availability. Those words weren't part of my vocabulary. We had children, two of them. I remember holding my first child and feeling terrified, not in a poetic way, in a practical way. How am I going to afford this? How am I going to keep everything from falling apart? So I worked more. Overtime became normal. Missed dinners became routine. I'll make it up later became a sentence I repeated so often it lost meaning. At the time, it didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like sacrifice. I told myself I was doing what a good man does. I came home tired, not just physically, mentally. When my wife wanted to talk about her day, I half listened. When the kids wanted to show me something, I glanced up and nodded. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't violent. I wasn't openly neglectful. I was absent in a quiet way, which is harder to notice while it's happening. Years pass faster than you expect. You don't feel time moving when you're inside it. You notice it later when you look back and realize entire decades collapsed into a few blurred impressions. My kids grew. They developed personalities I didn't fully know. They had worries I wasn't aware of. They had small heartbreaks I never heard about. Not because they didn't exist, because I wasn't there enough for them to share. My wife changed too. Not suddenly. Gradually, she became quieter, less likely to ask me to sit with her, less likely to complain. At the time, I took that as a sign things were fine. I didn't realize silence can mean resignation. I remember one evening in my 40s. I came home late. She was sitting at the kitchen table. The kids were already in their rooms. She said, "Do you know them?" I laughed a little. I thought she was joking. She didn't smile. She said, "Do you really know our children?" I shrugged. I said something like, "They're good kids." She nodded. That was the whole conversation. I didn't think about it much after that. That's one of the moments that replays in my mind now. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was a doorway I walked past without noticing. The slow cost of my choices didn't look like disaster. It looked like distance. It looked like fewer conversations, shorter answers, longer gaps between real connection. I didn't lose my family in one explosive event. I lost them in inches. A birthday missed here, a school play skipped there, a promise postponed, a phone call not returned, each one small enough to justify. Together they became a pattern. My kids left home. We hugged. We took pictures. I told myself this was the natural order of things. They were building their own lives. That's what they were supposed to do. I didn't notice how little they called. I didn't question why conversations stayed shallow. I told myself they were busy, which was true, but I had taught them without meaning to that I was always busy too. My wife and I became polite roommates. We talked about groceries, appointments, house repairs, not about feelings, not about fears, not about us. Sometimes I sensed something was wrong, a heaviness in the room, a sadness I couldn't name. But I avoided it, not consciously. I just didn't know how to step into it. Avoidance can look a lot like normal life. Years later, my wife got sick. Nothing sudden. It started with fatigue, then tests, then more tests, then a diagnosis. I sat in a small office holding her hand. The doctor explained things. I nodded. I don't remember most of what he said. What I remember is the way my wife looked at me. Not scared, not angry. Tired. Deeply tired. That's when something shifted inside me. Not enough, not fast enough. But I started coming home earlier. I started sitting with her. I started asking questions. I told myself I was stepping up. And I was. But I was also late. She lived for a few more years. We spent a lot of time together during that period. More time than we had in decades. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just sat quietly. One evening she said, "I wish we had done this sooner." I said, "We have time now." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "Not the kind I meant." I didn't understand. Not fully. She died on a calm morning. I was sitting next to her bed. She was breathing slowly. Then she wasn't. No dramatic moment. No final speech. Just a small change. I remember feeling strangely empty. Not overwhelmed, not hysterical, just hollow. Grief doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it settles like dust. The house felt enormous after she was gone. Every room held echoes, not voices, absences. I reached out to my children more after that. We talked. We met occasionally, but something was different. They were kind, they were polite, they checked on me. But we weren't close in the way people imagine families being close. We didn't share deep things, we didn't lean on each other much. I don't blame them. They grew up learning that emotional distance was normal. I taught them that. One of my sons moved far away. We spoke a few times a year, birthdays, holidays, short updates. He has children now. I've met them. They know me as their grandfather, but not in a deep way. I don't know their favorite things. I don't know what scares them. I don't know what makes them feel safe. I see pictures sometimes. I nod, I smile, and I feel a quiet ache. My daughter lives closer. She visits more often. We sit at the table. We talk about practical things. She's good to me. But there are walls between us, not hostile walls. Old walls, built slowly, brick by me. The turning point for me didn't happen in a single moment. It happened in layers. After my wife died, after I retired, after the noise of work disappeared, after there was nothing left to distract me. Silence is honest. In silence, you can't hide from yourself. That's when I started to see my life clearly. Not as a success story, not as a tragedy, just as a long series of choices. Most of them made with decent intentions. Many of them made with incomplete understanding. I realized that I had confused being useful with being present. I thought my value came from what I produced, from what I provided, from how busy I was. I rarely considered that my value might have come from simply being there, listening, showing interest, sharing space. I thought love was proven through endurance, through effort, through responsibility. I didn't understand that love also needs attention, warmth, time that isn't multitasking. I also realized how often I postponed hard conversations. I told myself I would talk about things later, when things settled down, when work slowed, when I felt less tired. Later never really arrived. It just quietly turned into never. There are things I wish I had said to my wife, not grand declarations, simple things. I see you. I appreciate you. I'm sorry I wasn't around more. I should have asked how you were really doing. There are things I wish I had said to my children. I'm proud of you. I want to know you better. I'm sorry I missed so much. Some of these things I tried to say later, but timing matters. Words land differently when they're late. I can't go back. I can't redo my 30s. I can't show up to school events that happened 40 years ago. I can't become a different version of myself for my wife. Those versions are gone. That is one of the hardest truths of aging. Not everything is fixable. Some things can be apologized for. Some relationships can be repaired, but some seasons close. And they don't reopen. I live with that. Not in constant agony, not in dramatic despair, just a steady, quiet awareness, like carrying a stone in my pocket. Always there, sometimes heavier, sometimes lighter, but never gone. So when I say I finally understand what truly mattered, I don't mean it in an abstract way, I mean it very concretely. It was the small moments, the ordinary ones. Sitting at the table without rushing, asking a question and actually listening to the answer. Putting down what I was doing when someone wanted my attention. Being emotionally available even when it felt uncomfortable. Letting people see me tired. Letting people see me unsure. I thought strength meant never needing anyone. I was wrong. I thought independence was the highest form of maturity. I was wrong. We are built for connection, not in a poetic sense, in a practical one. We need to be witnessed. We need to be known. I spent much of my life trying to be impressive to people who don't remember my name now, and I wasn't present enough with the people who still matter to me. If you're listening to this and you're young, I'm not telling you to abandon your responsibilities. I'm not telling you to quit your job. I'm not telling you to live recklessly. I'm just telling you what I wish someone had told me. Pay attention to who is in your life. Notice who keeps trying to talk to you. Notice who waits for you. Notice who keeps forgiving your absence. Those people are not guaranteed to be there later. Not because they're cruel, not because they stop caring, but because time changes everything. Distance grows, habits solidify, people get tired. I used to think relationships were durable by default, that they could survive long stretches of neglect. Some can, many can't, and even the ones that survive may not feel the same. If something in you has been quietly saying, I should call them, listen to that. If something in you has been saying, I've been avoiding this conversation, consider why. You don't need perfect words. You don't need a dramatic moment. You just need to start. Small, awkward, imperfect. That's usually enough. I don't say this as advice. I say it as a record of my life. A life where I waited, a life where I assumed, a life where I meant well and still caused harm. There are good parts of my life too. I'm not pretending everything was terrible. I had moments of joy. I had laughter. I had pride. I had comfort. But when I strip it all down, when I imagine what I would save if I could only keep a few memories, they're not the ones I used to think mattered. They're quiet moments, shared moments, human moments. I'm nearing the end now. I can feel it in my body, in my energy, in the way the world feels slightly farther away. I don't know exactly how much time I have left, but I know it's limited. I spend a lot of it sitting, looking out the window, thinking. Sometimes my children visit. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes I hear from old acquaintances. Mostly it's quiet. I've learned to live with the quiet. I don't hate myself. I don't beat myself up endlessly. That wouldn't change anything. I accept that I was a flawed person doing the best I knew how, with the understanding I had at the time. But acceptance doesn't erase awareness. Both can exist together. If this meant something to you, I'm glad. If it didn't, that's okay too. I didn't share this to be profound. I shared it because it's true. I finally understand what truly mattered. It was never the size of my house. It was never my job title. It was never how busy I looked. It was people. It was time with them. It was showing up before it was urgent. I don't have the chance to live that truth fully anymore. But you might, that's all. I'm 90 years old, and this is what I know.